Good morning everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. I'm so happy you guys are here today. I have kind of a fun video for you guys today. I was talking to my friend Jenny from Harmony Hills Home and Garden, and she is a wonderful gardener and YouTuber that lives in Baltimore, Maryland, which is Zone 7. And her and I were talking about the differences in our gardening experiences. I am in Northern California, Zone 9B, and like I said, she's in Zone 7. And, you know, I was sitting outside on the couch talking to her, you know, and had the sun, you know, and blue skies, and she was inside and cold. And so, you know, she's just, you know, a month or two behind me in zones, and that's completely understandable. But it was just interesting to have a conversation with her about what were her favorite plants to garden in Zone 7 and what were my favorite plants to garden in Zone 9B. So we thought it would be a fun video to share with you guys our top 5 favorite plants in our zones. So I want to share with you guys my favorite plants, and then I want to invite you guys to go over it and check out Jenny's channel, Harmony Hills Home and Garden. I will link her below, and you can see what her favorite plants are in Zone 7. All right, so for my top 5, these are in no particular order, but I will say the first one I'm going to talk about probably is my favorite plant. Not to be, you know, picky or playing favorites or anything like that, but I just love this plant so much, and that is Mystic Spires Blue Salvia. It is a perennial for me. It's a perennial in Zone 7 through 10, and it is this gorgeous, it has dark green foliage about a foot tall, and then these purple blue spikes that are really sturdy and stand up nice and straight, and those can get 12 to 18 inches tall, even up to 30 inches tall. And I will say in my zone they definitely do get up to 30 inches tall. It is deer resistant, it is drought tolerant, it is such an easy care plant, and when it blooms from early summer all the way through frost. When it blooms, it's just a constant show of purple. It's so gorgeous. The birds, the bees love it. The butterflies love it. I mean, it's just a wonderful plant. I happened to buy this plant on a whim at a local garden center, you know, and I put it in my garden, and it just thrived. I just couldn't believe how easy this plant was to grow in my zone. Anytime anybody asks me what plants that they should plant, I always recommend this one because I just think it's so easy. I actually even use the blooms in my cut flowers as well, and it's just this beautiful spike of purple that I just absolutely love. Mystic Spires Blue Salvia thrives in full sun to a little bit of shade, light shade, and I actually have my plants in both. I have it in full sun and I have it in shade underneath my crepe myrtle tree. And obviously it blooms more readily in the full sun location, but it does bloom in the light shade location, and it does really well. The only thing I have to do to take care of this plant is I have to water it and I have to fertilize it, and I do have to protect it from slugs during this time of year and during the winter, just because the slugs like to eat the foliage. So all I do is I go out there and I spread some Sluggo around it. It's just such a fast grower that even if the slugs do get to it, the new foliage is going to cover up whatever was eaten. It's just a fantastic plant. So the next plant I want to talk about in my top 5 is HELEN von Stein Lamb's Ear. And I've talked about this one a couple times with you guys as well. It's just a beautiful, fuzzy, silvery green mound of leaves that's just such a wonderful accent in the garden. It is a perennial in zones 4 through 9, deer and rabbit resistant, and it's drought resistant. I just love this plant because it's just such a fantastic accent. You put it right next to the Mystic Spires Blue Salvia, and it just makes everything around it pop. And then my girls love it because it's this nice fuzzy plant that everybody wants to touch when they walk by. I don't even fertilize it. It barely blooms. Every once in a while it'll get a bloom stalk, and I'll just run and I'll just cut it off. I've actually used the bloom stalks in my cut flower bouquets as well, and I really do like using the leaves in my cut flower bouquets as well. I use it the same way that I use Dusty Miller, and it's just this beautiful accent in my garden. Whenever it does have a bloom stalk, I do cut it off just so it doesn't reseed, because it can tend to reseed, and all I do is I water it. I don't even fertilize it. It thrives in full sun to morning sun, afternoon shade, but I have most of mine in full sun. It's just a fantastic plant that handles our heat, and it just thrives. The next plant that I want to talk to you guys about is actually right next to me, and that is a limelight hydrangea. So a limelight hydrangea is a panicle type hydrangea. The ones that I always purchase are the ones from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs. I absolutely love them. They get 6 to 8 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet wide. Mine are only about 3 years old, so I think it'll probably just get to about 5 feet this year, but they are absolutely beautiful. Here in Zone 9, we are so hot and we are so dry that we often have trouble growing like the big leaf hydrangeas or the macrophylla hydrangeas. Mountain hydrangeas do really well in our area, but in my opinion, these panicle hydrangeas absolutely do the best. I have so many of them in my yard and I just love them. They're the easiest hydrangeas in my opinion because they bloom on new wood, so you really don't have to worry about them. They start off, the blooms come in about summer and they stay all the way through till frost, and they start off this beautiful lime green color, and it's just so fresh and so beautiful, and they will fade to a creamy white as the season goes on. If your nights get cold enough, the blooms will actually fade to like a red, pink, burgundy color. Mine usually don't do that. I did get 2 of the Limelight Prime, the new updated version of the Limelight hydrangeas last year, and they did turn to this gorgeous pink color. I'll put a picture up right now. They turned last year and they were beautiful, and I'm hoping that they will turn again this year. Limelight hydrangeas are perennials in zones 3 through 9. Like I said, they get about 6 to 8 feet tall, 6 to 8 feet wide. Make sure that you water these guys. I think that that's the secret to growing hydrangeas in my zone, zone 9B, is you have to give them a ton of water. I water them every single day. I actually updated my drip system back here when I put these in because I wanted them to have water every single day, and I wanted them to have a good amount of water. So they are definitely not drought tolerant plants. These, I would say they're in part shade, the ones right back here by this north facing fence, but I do have 2 limelight hydrangeas in my front yard that they are in full sun. And what I'm doing is I'm letting them sit there and I'm letting their root system grow out so that they can soak up as much water as possible. So the more old and developed their root system is, the more water they can get and the less likely the leaves are going to scorch in the hot summer sun. So it's a big experiment for me, but I think that it's going to go really well, just as long as I keep them nice and watered. You can get these Limelight hydrangeas in standards. I want one so bad, I just don't know where I would put it. I got one from my mother for Mother's Day last year, and it's so beautiful. She has it on her patio in a pot, and it's just this gorgeous Limelight hydrangea standard that I absolutely love. So if you guys are in a high zone like I am and you've been having trouble with hydrangeas or thought that you couldn't try hydrangeas, I would recommend you guys look into the Limelight hydrangeas. I just think they are fantastic, and I'm so happy that they work in our high zones. I love hydrangeas. I actually used hydrangeas as my wedding flower, so it's a big deal for me to be able to grow hydrangeas in my garden, and Limelights allow me to do that. All right, so the next plant I'm going to talk about, I couldn't decide whether to put this on the list or not, just because it's such a classic. I feel like it's on everybody's top plant list, and I thought I just had to, because it really is my favorite plant, and that is SUPERTUNIA VISTA BUBBLEGUM from Proven Winners. You guys, this is just the most wonderful plant it's just so fantastic. It is this bright pop of pink that stays colorful throughout the season. I have planted these in my front annual border right in front of my house for the past 2 years, and I can't tell you how many people stop by just to give me compliments and comments on this flower. It's just so amazing planted in mass. They grow about 16 to 24 inches tall, and they can get up to 2 feet wide, which is insane. I don't even bother purchasing regular petunias now. I always wait until I can get the SUPERTUNIAs because it's not worth it otherwise. You don't have to deadhead these. They grow so well. they just thrive. They are heat tolerant. They actually love the heat, and they will grow so fast if you give it fertilizer every day. Not every day. If you give it fertilizer every week, give it enough water. And then here in my area, I actually do have to protect them from budworms. And budworms are the worms that come from the little white butterflies that fly around. And if they do get budworms, you know, it'll eat all your blooms off. So I just spray it with BT about once a week to once every other week, kind of in the same schedule that I fertilize it. And it's just the most fantastic annual. It is a perennial in zones 10 through 11, and there are actually people that winter them over here in zone 9B. I actually wintered some over in my greenhouse, so I have this nice big pot of SUPERTUNIA VISTA bubblegums that I'm going to plant in my garden this year, that I saved from last year, which is very exciting. Proven Winners describe SUPERTUNIA VISTA bubblegum as the best petunia, period, and I have to agree with them. I think I would really credit this plant as like stoking my love of gardening, because it was just so easy and it had such a fantastic payoff. As soon as I planted these, it was like, oh, I don't have a brown thumb, I have a green thumb. And I think that a plant that can do that for someone, I mean, it deserved to be on everybody's favorites list. So number 4 on my list, no order in particular, is SUPERTUNIA VISTA bubblegum. Okay, you guys, so the last plant on my top 5 list of plants that I grow in zone 9B is the Shasta daisy. Now, it's kind of funny because the Shasta daisies that I grow, I do not know the variety. I got them from Lowe's. There was a 3 for $9 sale, and I got 6 of them, and they're absolutely fantastic. This is another flower that people actually stop and compliment me on because they're so beautiful when they start blooming. I do not think I have the BECKY variety, which is the most common variety of Shasta daisies. BECKY, it looks like it gets taller than the variety I have. I think the variety I have is called SNOWCAP. And SNOWCAP is a perennial in zones 5 through 9. It grows 12 to 15 inches tall and 12 inches wide. It loves full sun, well-drained soil. It blooms early to late summer, drought tolerant, deer and rabbit resistant. I think that's the variety I have, but obviously I can't say that. I've tried to look up on the Lowe's website what grower they use and everything like that, but just as far as I can tell, it's probably the SNOWCAP variety because that is a dwarf version of BECKY, and that's one of the compliments I do get is people come by and say, how do you keep your Shasta daisy so short? I don't know. It's just the variety that I have, and they just thrive in my zone. When you walk down neighborhoods, you can see everybody's growing Shasta daisies because they are so easy to grow. It is such a fantastic perennial, zones 5 through 9. I do have to deadhead my Shasta daisies, which is kind of a pain, you know, because you do have to go out there and make sure that you cut off the old blooms, not only to make the plant look good, but also to keep it blooming for as long as possible. This plant does not bloom throughout the season for me. Once it gets super hot, it slows down, but sometimes in the fall, it'll pick back up a little bit, which is really nice. But every spring, I get really excited when I start seeing those buds, and they're coming up right now because I know that all the flowers are just gonna start flushing out, and it's gonna be this beautiful, beautiful show. So you guys, that is it for the top 5 plants in my zone 9B. Like I said, those are the plants that I love growing, and if anybody was to come up and ask me what my favorites were, those would be it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please consider subscribing, and I wonder if Jenny from Harmony Hills Home and Garden has any of the same favorites that I do.
Hi Janie, Jenny here from Harmony Hills Home and Garden in Baltimore, Maryland, which is zone 7. Thanks so much for sharing your top 5 plants. They're all awesome. I especially love those salvias. I'm a sucker for any kind of salvia. But also, we have some things in common. I too love Shasta daisies in my garden. In fact, I've got my top 5 list of garden plants going on my channel too, and I'd love to invite your viewers over to my channel to watch my top 5 garden plants for zone 7. Thanks again for this really fun collaboration, Janie. I can't wait to see your garden grow this season.